Hi, I'm Alex from the sales engineering team here at StackOne. In this demo, we're going to be looking at how you can build a context-aware agent which can take action in real time using StackOne's integration gateway. So the example use case we're going to be looking at is a recruiter agent, which needs to know about all our open job requisitions, our hiring policies, and the details of the jobs themselves. Commonly, this data lives in knowledge bases or document storage solutions as unstructured documents. In the example here, we're going to be looking at Google Drive documents. Then secondly, our agent is not only going to ingest this context, but it's also going to make updates in these underlying policies for us. This could be to respond to changes in our organizational structure, or to respond to changes in legal language which we need to reflect in public-facing documents. So for this agent to be effective, we need it to be able to efficiently ingest scope from our organization. Secondly, we want our agents to be able to then take action on the underlying source documents for us. And thirdly, so that our agent doesn't make mistakes based on stale data, we also need to update the RAG databases partially based on changes in the underlying sources. So let's look at what this looks like in practice. So in our demo, we've got this sandbox Google Drive environment with a few documents, and we're going to be looking at this example job description today for a pre-sales engineer. We've then got this demo application here, which is a React and Postgres database stack, where we've built an agent using the chat UI from the Sales AI SDK. On this page, I can set up integration so that my agent is scoped to the systems I've got access to. I've pre-configured Google Sheets and Google Documents as integrations, and I can add in another integration here for Google Drive. When I click connect, this is going to load the StackOne Hub, which is a React SDK implementation that allows us to onboard credentials securely into StackOne so that we don't have to handle the auth in our application. So when I click connect, we're going to go through to the OAuth flow for Google. I'm going to select the sandbox account, and I'm going to approve the scopes that the application is asking for. And now that I've connected these accounts, I can set up an agent that uses these systems. So when I create the agent here, I'm going to call it recruiter agent. I can select which systems I want to give it access to. And when I select Google Drive, it identifies that this is a system which we can actually search for files and then ingest them into our RAG database. So here when I click add files, we're using a second embeddable component from StackOne called the file picker. This loads the native file explorer for Google in this case, but in some cases like Notion, where they don't have their own SDK for picking files, we've created a unified file picking experience. So this is going to allow me to scope my agent to just that one file that I want to give it access to, so it doesn't have ungoverned access to all my other files. When this modal closes, it returns a file identifier. And when I click Create Agent, under the hood, we're using that file identifier to then hit StackOne's Documents API to download the file contents. We're then using an LLM to create chunk embeddings and store them in our RAG database. And that's now going to be available for our agent to query at runtime. So now I can ask my agent to show me who the pre-sales engineer position reports to according to the job description. So now we can see in real time how this agent is going about this prompt. So we can see that it's pulling in that document as a source, and it's actually using this get information from RAG tool pool that we've given it access to. So using this, it can just get the chunk that's relevant for this query and answer the question for us. So it tells us that this position reports into the VP of sales, which is correct. Now let's say there's been a change in our org structure, and we actually want this position to report into the head of pre-sales engineering. Let's ask the agent to do that update for us. So can you update the job spec so that the position reports into the head or pre-sales engineering. So Google Documents, I should say, supports a specific API tool called Update Documents, and this allows us to do a search and replace operation, which is very efficient for this use case. Now, the way this is going to work with StackOne is we've actually given it two tools to the agent, one to search and one to execute. So what this means is in the search, we're going to send the intent of our action to StackOne, and it's going to return the list of tools and their schemas that are relevant to this prompt. Our agent is then going to select the right tool and execute that using the second action. And then you can see the JSON input and output that the agent is sending into StackOne to make this change. And then we can see that the change has been successful. If we go back to the document, we can see that it's actually made it across here. So the final piece is, how do we actually then update our RAG database to reflect this change so that when we ask the agent again about our job specification, it doesn't refer to the old information? So this is where we utilize webhooks. So I'm in the StackOne dashboard here inside the project where I've connected the different accounts for this demo app, and we've got this webhook set up pointing to our app, which has a couple of events enabled for the documents themselves. So in this tab, you'll see that I've got event listeners for updated and deleted documents. If I go back to the overview here, you can see the log elements relating to this webhook setup. And you can see that anytime a document is updated, it sends through a real-time webhook. So we can see for this one most recently, it's going to tell us that the ID of that document has been changed. It's then going to reindex the RAG database. And what this means is if we then set up a new chat here and ask it again, according to the job description, who does the pre-sales engineer position report into? So this should then call the RAG again. It doesn't have the context from the other thread. But you can see that now, instead of telling us that it reports into the VP of sales, the RAG database has actually been updated. And so the agent can pick up the change that we've actually done previously. So in summary, the key components that we've shown in this demo are the StackOne Hub. This is how we onboard credentials securely into StackOne in an embedded way. And that means we can scope the agent to the user's permissions, and we can actually govern which actions the agent is able to perform through the auth configs. Secondly, we're using the file picker component. So this again is an embeddable UI component. We're using a React SDK here, and this allows us to allow the user to pick which files they want the RAG database to ingest. So again, there's another layer of governance and control there. Thirdly, we've got the Documents API. Now, this is a unified API that actually allows us to list files, download them, do other actions like updating and deleting across different document storage solutions like Google Drive or SharePoint, but also knowledge-based systems like Notion and Confluence. And then finally, we've got the synthetic webhooks. So there's a unified webhook architecture where, regardless of if the underlying system like Google Drive supports webhooks, we're able to implement the same event-driven architecture to update our RAG database partially based on source documents being updated. If you'd like to learn more about any of these components, you can go to the StackOne documentation. You can sign up for a free account on our platform and try out these components and actions for yourself.